I would like Nakiba Gregory to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And please remain standing after the pledge for a moment of silence in remembrance of Kelvin, Julie, and Lucas Hodges, children who were passed 1 year ago today from our Southport school community. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Today marks the anniversary of the tragic passing of two of our Southport students and their baby brother, Kelvin, Julie, and Lucas Hodges. Mai Sheng has left these white roses or white carnations and to thank us for acknowledging their passing as a district and at the school today. So I wanted to share that. This moment in our history showed us the unity of our community and the deep connections we have to one another here in West Sacramento. Let us always remember that in the darkest of times, and in those moments of disagreements, that we are rooted in the human kindness and caring for one another as neighbors, friends, and family. Through their surviving family members and to Mai Sheng, we continue to share your loss and sadness and pray that you are surrounded by love on this very most difficult day. So, roll call. Okay. Again, roll call. Trustee Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez.
Here.
Trustee Kobe Pizzotti.
Here.
Trustee Norma Alcala is absent tonight, and I am present. Announcements of action taken in closed session. E1, Government Code, Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, Release, Information Received. E2, Government Code 54969.9D2, Conference with Legal Counsel, Potential Litigation, 2 cases, Information Received, and Direction Given. Q1.
That's Q1.
So we move on to J, approval of the agenda, and I understand there are things to be.
Yeah, I would like to remove O1 from the consent agenda, just merely to acknowledge one of the contributors.
Vice President Wong, I would like to pull O11 and move that to action.
Okay. So moved and, okay.
So moved.
So moved. Let's vote on the rest of the agenda. So motion to move
Motion.
by, motion
second.
by, second, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
So agenda is approved. So K, communications and celebrations, presentation of reading intervention specialist, vocation program by Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Amber Lee.
Now it is. Good evening, Board of Trustees. It is my pleasure and honor tonight to celebrate 2 amazing educators who saw a problem and found a creative way to solve it and didn't take no for an answer. And with the support of our program specialists, Michelle Garcia, these 2 ladies, Judy Moreno and Connie Walker, set out to do amazing things on behalf of our students. So I'm going to call them up and let them share a little bit of a journey that they took their students on this summer.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Connie Walker from Ridgeway Island.
I'm Judy Moreno from Riverbank.
So last year, we were thinking a little bit about what could we do for our students over the summer break. Our students are already far behind in reading intervention, and we didn't want them to go all summer without exposure to literacy. So we came up with this idea to read to them and be those ones in their homes throughout the summer break. And so we developed 10 videos that we released weekly for the students to watch us read books to them that we had chosen, and we decided to take them on what we called a bookcation for summer vacation.
So the students that we chose before they left for summer break, each of those students got a piece of luggage that they made in class, a passport that Michelle helped us purchase, and we went out of pocket and got a post office box here in West Sacramento. And so what would happen every week is that we'd push an email out to parents, and they would click on the link. It would take them to Bookcation. The students would watch a video. Inside of that suitcase were 12 postcards that had already been stamped. And Michelle and Amber both helped us purchase stamps, so thank you again. Mm-hmm. They mailed those postcards in. I drove into West Sacramento once a week, emptied out the P.O. box, called Connie. We mailed those students back as stickers that they put inside of their passport. At the beginning of the school year, those students came with their passports, and my fabulous husband, Aaron Moreno, hustled with Walmart and got us 4 $100 gift cards, and those students' names were entered into a raffle.
So our rationale behind it, besides, of course, having them read or have exposure to literacy all summer, was that we figured the motivation would be getting that mail from their teacher all summer long, knowing that we were thinking of them. And those that we didn't hear from right away, we ourselves then sent out postcards to them to kind of remind them. In the end, on the next slide, you'll see pictures of our postcards that we got. We were blown away by the response we got from our students. I had 91 at Ridgeway Island postcards. Students also sent me other things they were reading about, and so they made up their own cards with their own little response frames in it and told me about what they were reading this summer as well.
I had 4. But we kind of knew that this being a pilot year, that we didn't know exactly how it was going to go. And so I remember going to the post office and pulling out Connie's stack and then pulling out my stack. But I told her when we started, I said, if I just get one back, it was totally worth it. And the day it made it worth it was when a homeless student started sending them in. So I was like, that's it. All of this was worth it. So that's where we are now.
Thank you.
I don't know if it was
Are we
linked
able to
up.
show a piece of the video?
Yeah, please.
My husband wrote the theme song.
Autographs after
Yeah.
coordinating.
Yes.
You have to scroll down to get to an
You
actual
scroll
video.
down and you can hit a video.
Anyone.
Anyone's fine.
Yes, volume.
Can't hear you.
All right, welcome back to Vocation. This week, we're going back to one of our favorite places, the beach. You could go to the beach by the ocean, or you could also go to the beach by the lake, which is somewhere I like to spend a lot of my days since we have that close around here. This one is called S is for Sea Glass, a beach alphabet. A is for angel. When we're at the seashore, the first thing I plan is to lie really flat with my back in the
Connie did all the editing on this. It was pretty amazing.
Feel free to laugh at us.
But yeah, so we filmed this all in one day. We took a day, Hortensia Pfeiffer, the principal of Riverbank, Hortensia Hernandez, I know, I got it, purchased all the books for us, and we just took a day with Edmund Lynch, and we did all the costume changes, and then Connie worked super hard and did all of the editing. So it was a super team effort.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
I just, once again, want to thank them for all of their incredible work. And this is just a testament to the incredible, amazing educators that we have in our district that work tirelessly to serve our students. And so while much of this came out of their pocket this year, Ed Services is committed to expanding this program to other school sites. Under the leadership of Michelle and Connie and Judy, we'll be working with other reading intervention specialists to expand it, and we will be supporting this program. And they're also looking at some different ideas of carrying it on throughout the school year too, not just in the summer. So it was a very collaborative effort and a lot of hard work, and we're very grateful for these two educators.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay,
Trustee
that was
Pizzotti?
going to be one of my questions, is whether or not we can expand this, going forward, because this is an amazing idea. And I guess my first question after that is, how did you guys come up with this brilliant idea? Because this is so cool. I mean, it's a phenomenal program.
Well, I have to admit, I was daydreaming during a meeting, and
So blame Linda?
no, you were there. But I'm always planning ahead for the next year, and I was sitting next to Judy, and we've worked as reading specialists a long time together, and I was just thinking, in my mind, I'm going, what can I do and include technology, because everybody's got their phones out these days. Even our poorest of students seem to always have some kind of device in their hand. And I was thinking, the best way to get to them was read to them, and they go on YouTube. Why not us be the one to be their bedtime story, was kind of my thought. So I shared it with Judy, and she came up with the passport idea, and it just kind of took off from there.
Yes. Yeah, and we currently, right now, we're working on trademarking it, which
Yeah.
is a whole big thing on its own. So we've been on the phone with LegalZoom during lunch and speaking with them about how to get this process going. Because it was, I think it started as just an idea, and you can never plan it out when it's going to be big.
Right.
And it's just started to really gain some traction. On my Instagram, I've gotten 2 messages from schools in different states that have been interested. So
Nice.
we just want to hold on to it, and of course, share it with West Sacramento.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. There's a are you talking about my student? Okay. There was a student that I saw that read every single week, and his mom would send me a text message saying, it's Monday morning, we're waiting. And I was like, okay. And I would send it, we'd push it out. She would text me, it's in the mail, it's there, go get it. And they were just on me every 3
Right.
days, like, this is coming in, this is coming in, this is coming in. He did every single week at Riverbank, and he was one of the winners of the gift card, so.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. A friend had posted this other, and it really spoke to me, and it spoke to me when you shared that you're a homeless student who did this, is that equity is about being boldly unapologetic about serving our most vulnerable students. And that's what you did. You did not get 91, but you got him. And that's amazing. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
That was the point.
Yeah.
Trustee.
And
Kirby Gonzalez.
I saw at the start of summer, I saw a teacher, maybe it was a principal out of our region, doing something similar, and they called it bedtime stories, but not at all the level that you're doing at all. It was just a little quirky YouTube, reading once a week, and thought, wow, what a neat thing to do, having no idea that it was done here, and to your level that it was done here. So I'm so glad you're looking at trademarking it, because I think that everyone can benefit, not just, 1 or 2 schools or even just our district. It's a really great thing to spread all over. And so thank you for being leaders in that and looking at trademarking, and really special, really great idea. So thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask the Board of Trustees if you can come down and help celebrate these 2 incredible educators. We just want to recognize them for all their efforts, and this is truly what's demonstrated when we say that teachers go above and beyond. This is way above and beyond, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now it's the photo thing, okay?
Okay.
So here's this.
Little pack down.
And, yeah, let's come on over there. And,
Michelle and her two for one picture. She really supported it. Same for all the stamps.
Scoot in, please. Thank you.
45-degree angle.
Always. 1, 2, 3.
You gotta take it from above, down. That's how
Everybody knows I take the best pictures.
Well, if you knew, then you'd be like, you take it from an angle. Oh, no, that's
This is Aaron.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Okay.
Next is association reports. L1 is WSTA report, and tonight we have
Douglas?
Mr. the man.
Thank you very much. I'm so impressed and disappointed I didn't think of it. Primary teachers are so competitive. All right, well, thank you very much, trustees, Superintendent Luna. I'm just bringing messages from Mr. Stauffer, and I'll pass them along to you, and they'll be brief. Mr. Stauffer wanted to pass on that we're still feeling our way around the new schedule and contract hours. There's been some unforeseen issues that still need to be worked out, but so far we're all working together to get things done. And we just wanted to note that it seems pretty universal that everybody is giving an effort to try and work these little snafus out. We're hearing about some discipline issues at several sites. And again, we're all trying to maneuver through this together as there's been so many changes, particularly with the MTSS process. So we're going to continue to try and work together to resolve these issues. But Don wanted to put a reminder out there that we all agreed that our goal should be to have positive, safe, healthy classrooms, and we're going to continue to push for that. Dawn had a meeting with Gail Watts, the CTA staff person, who conducts unconscious bias trainings. And the meeting ended up being really productive. A number of the ideas that need to be considered before a training is scheduled, a number of things need to be considered before a training is scheduled here. But we believe that moving forward with planning for this training would be beneficial. Dawn's going to be meeting with the staff person soon, with the staff soon, that we can begin looking at specific goals. And we're also seeking dates and potential attendees. And just for the record, I want to tell Trustee Pizzotti to say hi to Izzy for me. Thank you.
I have to say, Mr. Knapp's my daughter's school teacher, so there's a little bias there.
So L2 CSEA report. Daniel? No? Oh, great. Okay, no report. So next is public comments. In general, we do not have any, but at this time, I will read our statement. At this time, members of the public may address the board and on topics that are under the jurisdiction of the board and are not on the agenda, although the board, by law, may not take action at this meeting. The board may limit the total time for public input on any topic to 20 minutes unless it chooses to waive the item limit for a particular item. Individual speakers may be limited to 3 minutes to comment on any topic. Public comments consisting of individual charges, complaints, or derogatory remarks about any district employee are requested to be submitted in writing to the administration in accordance with the district's complaint procedure. We do recognize that for a lot of people commenting before the board and the audience and the people watching at home on television, is a nerve-wracking experience. So to try to make that as easy as possible, we do ask that there not be any applause or booing or catcalling or other demonstrations to maintain a civil discourse here in the chambers. The board respects the rights of members of the public to speak to us regarding matters on the agenda and other matters within the jurisdiction of the board. However, it is important for members of the public to recognize that comments regarding students other than the speaker's own children made during a public board meeting may be legally actionable as a violation of student privacy. Both state and federal law prohibit the board and others from discussing confidential student information in open session. To this end, be advised that if you reference a student's name other than your own student, you will be out of order and your comments may not be protected by the privileges that protect public speech. You could be found liable for such comments in legal proceedings. Furthermore, it is important for the public to understand that negative or derogatory comments made against district employees or others, even those made in a public board meeting, may be actionable civil defamation. As such, the board reminds the public that the district has existing board policy that allows the public to lodge a complaint against a district employee. This policy provides a comprehensive procedure for reviewing and responding to public complaints. This process provides a more thorough opportunity to be heard than is allowed under the open meeting law that governs this meeting. So next, information items for discussion is N1, the 2018 English Learners Summer Institute and Immigrant Program. Gwen Dillinger?
Good evening, everyone, and it's my pleasure to bring summer back to us, starting with the hummingbirds. I wanted to just celebrate the English Learner Summer Institute, which was more than an English Learner Summer Institute. It was an institute for teachers. It was an institute about mainstreaming our special education students with our English learners, with our Indian education program, and these ladies behind me really knocked it out of the park. So we believe that a picture says 1,000 words. We do have a video to show you that I hope you enjoy, and then each one of these lovely team members are going to just say a few words about their part of the program. So enjoy. We'll do the video first.
Today we are going to take our word splash.
We've been practicing sentence unpacking, right?
We're going to do a closed reading.
Every summer, Washington Unified does an English Learner Summer Institute where teachers have the opportunity to come and teach English learners from all over the district.
Where it's very what? Hot. It helps me to remind myself of the needs of people who are learning English and making sure that there are many modalities that allow them to understand what's going on.
So now is a part of our daily professional learning where we're going to learn our strategy of the day. You'll get a chance to practice it. The teachers are trained in the strategies and in the ELD standards. They go back to their classrooms and practice the strategies, and then they come back together with their team and make the strategies even better.
I think the best way to sum it up are the words that Krista Koch used when we first started our training, which is we are on a low stakes island in a high stakes sea, which means I've been able to take a lot of risks and chances that I might not normally take during the school year.
It's like a magic pill that you give to the students and gradually works throughout the summer school days, which is not a lot, but you get results as if they have been injected with information.
They're listening, they're interpreting, they're collaborating, right? They're processing the language. So the coolest thing about this summer program is that we're using high leverage literacy strategies. They're high impact strategies that can be used across curriculum, across the grade levels. We're using them and they're especially effective for English learners and special education students, but at the same time, they're great for all learners.
One of my students, she came with about one-word utterances, and then she became friends with one of actually the highest students in the class. And then just to see her spontaneous speech just explode because she has this new partnership of this general education peer that she might have not been able to meet if the co-teaching model wasn't implemented.
Another amazing byproduct of this program is just the collaboration that we see between teachers. Teachers from literally every grade level from TK through high school are here this summer. And I'm the most excited about everyone going back to their original home sites and being able to share these strategies with their staffs and their administrators. And it's all in the best interest of our kids.
That's a really good summary of what happened over summer school. We do have a video that we did for summer school for every one of the strategies that we used. But another byproduct of this program was that we realized our Afghani students that are at our English Learner Institute had struggles at home with their parents and with the cultural acclimation that they were going through. So we had a homeschool liaison, Salsala Barami, who ended up working with the Gateway Towers families, and she's going to talk about a little bit about that as well. So I'm going to let her start, and then we'll just go down. And Salsala.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Salsa Barami. I'm a homeschool liaison. I work at the district side. I help Afghani families. They're the newcomers. Basically, they don't speak any English. They have no idea like how to read or write. So what I do is I go twice a week at the Tower Gateway Bridge and teach them how to read, write, how to send a mail. Some of my students, they've never been in school, never attended. They've never been in like a classroom with a bunch of people. So it's like their first time being in the classroom, which at first was really sad seeing them, like the way they were writing, or they couldn't even read or nothing at all. But now I have a student that they're helping each other, they're collaborating with each other, and sometimes they're, taking my mistakes now. So, which is really interesting, and I really like helping them, and looking forward to move on with the program. Thank you.
Good evening, Sue Massey Clover, Director of Special Services. This actually started in a very easy way. Krista Koch was talking to Assistant Superintendent Amber Lee in the hallway, and I strolled up and said, hey, let's co-teach ESY. And so we did. So that's what it took, and then these lovely ladies to my right set up and got it set up and running, and it was an amazing thing to see. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Christina Hernandez, and I'm an intervention specialist. I'm coming to you today as a teacher of ELD Summer Institute, but also as a parent of a student that was in there. So as a teacher, summer school was so engaging. The content was so engaging. The kids were super excited about it. The amazing strategies that we used every day, and the continuous refining of the summer school program was amazing. The collaboration time, if I could have that all year, like all the time, it would be amazing. And I know we're doing more of that this year, but it's just amazing what we had in summer school, and to be able to work together and bounce ideas off each other and really put it to work and then refine it as we went. As a parent, I get emotional because my son made so much growth. His confidence just went out the window. Now he's in third grade, and he's just flying like with excitement to learn. So I give that all to the summer school program. That's it.
I'm Abigail Sais. I'm a SDC teacher, and it was just really beneficial to use the co-teaching model. Just we're always wondering, okay, I want these kids with their gen ed peers, but I also know they need the services and supports in order to succeed. So just to see them be with their gen ed peers and get the support and services they need while working with another teacher, having different strengths, different things that we can see, and it was just amazing to see the students make so much progress and be around their gen ed peers.
Hi, I'm Carla Salvo, Program Specialist for Special Education. When we came to the table to start brainstorming about co-teaching, I was so excited because this is really part of our 3-year plan, and this is what we would like our district just to be its norm. And the students, not only, like they've all mentioned, made just gains, and for me, it's always been we have to have high expectations for all students, and I feel like that's what this program did for all of our students, and they all blossomed. Like students that some of our teachers were apprehensive about had zero like needs really. They blended in with the classroom, and it just showed me how capable and amazing our students are. And not only that, just to see our teachers collaboratively working together. And I just thank so much for Krista and Stacy, who just kind of absorbed us all in and taught our teachers such great strategies that are great for all students. So all around, I felt like it was the most amazing experience, and I can't wait for this foundation that we've laid to continue on throughout our district. Thank you.
Nakiba Gregory, VAPA art teacher, Indian Ed. I was lucky enough to be able to help work with the Indian Ed program again this year. It was nice because we're starting to be able to revitalize it. And we were able to get kids just within 1 week to want to come to the Indian Ed program from every one of our schools, our K-8 schools. And we had all these kids that came who did not know each other at all, did not want to talk to each other in the beginning, and at the end, were completely connected together. We were just going to do the Indian Ed program, but after I saw what Stacy and Krista was doing, I asked if I could join in also because it was amazing. And so we did the hummingbird, and we did culturally relevant work with our Indian kids, and used both of it, and it was fabulous. We also were able to identify things that we need to work on with our kids throughout the year. But I want you to know that we need to build on this program. I have never been to a staff meeting that I enjoyed, except for this one. I am not
No
kidding.
offense to any of the,
No
offense to any of the schools.
Let me rephrase that. I have never been to an engaging staff meeting that made me so excited that I didn't care how long it lasted.
Nice.
Thank
Well
you.
said.
But the thing is that every single moment of those PLs, the training that we did, it was very well spent. There was not 1 minute that was not spent learning, collaborating, helping each other. And I did read Christina's son's before and after, humongous growth. Very impressive.
That's amazing.
And those kids on the playground, and during lunch, they talked about hummingbirds. They talked about it. It actually was an important thing to them. So it was a wonderful program.
And I'm Stacy Tran. I was instructional coach this summer. So I did in-class demonstration lessons, provided coaching and feedback to teachers, and then I also did daily professional learning for our teachers. So not only did these people give their heart and soul for 4 hours every day, they came and sat through PL for 2 additional hours, and they were fully engaged, fully collaborative, and just doing amazing things for kids. And through the video and what everyone has said, you may think we were there for 6 weeks. It was 19 days. So the growth I saw in the academic language, and like Christina said, the confidence of the students and the confidence of the teachers too. Many of our teachers had not had this experience with a class full of ELs before. So to see them using the strategies, coming back and saying, you know what, that didn't work as well as I wanted it to, what can I do better? Supporting one another, lesson planning together, sharing resources, strategies. It's an ideal situation, and if we could bottle it up and take it everywhere and do it all year, every single day, I think people would be on board with it. So I'm just so pleased with how it went. We had amazing staff, amazing support from the district office, and the way that Sasala was able to take it to the apartments and really meet the needs of the parents as well. I think it was just an incredible summer, and I'm so blessed to have been a part of it.
More pictures. Before Stacy goes, I want to give her these flowers in anticipation of a board item you have coming further down the agenda. Just so proud of her work and just the way that Stacy is received by this district. She's a veteran, and her heart is here. So just a few more pictures for you to enjoy, and then we'll take our seats. So thank you so much for your support of this program.
Yeah. Do we have any questions? Or comments? Trustee Kirby Gonzalez?
So I was so fortunate not to see, unfortunately, you teach in action. I was teaching that last week you had, but when I swung by the staff meeting, it just, it felt so good. I had to go pick up my daughter, but I wanted to stay in that room. And I came back and sang your praises. And I just want to thank you for that. And And that's the point, right, of summer school, to try these things out and to do exactly what you did. You did it right. And so I do hope that this can trickle over, just like you do, into our the Wednesday early out time that was spoken about earlier, and just having it be a time where you feel rejuvenated with your colleagues instead of I have to go to a meet, and I just felt that energy and passion for your students in the room. It was incredible. And so thank you for what you do, and thank you for your passion. It was really special to get to see that.
I also want to thank, every time you guys present on the Summer Institute, I get chills, and I appreciate everything you do. I was able to actually attend an Education Equity Summit today by Ed Trust West, and they're a research agency. And one of the things they said is, how do you close this achievement gap, is real collaboration, where the teachers and the partners at the table are actually excited to be there, having those conversations across the table, and that's how you make it sustainable, right, and meaningful. And so that's exactly every summer, every time you guys bring it forward, it's just, you can see kind of the passion and love and energy that you all have as a team, and it's just amazing. And thank you for all that you do, and thank you to leadership, whoever is kind of behind the scenes, who's allowed to make it happen. So thank you for that. All right, thank you, Gwen. Next up is N2 Superintendent.
Yeah. So I just want to give a shout out to Gwen Dellinger, because she is the one that is behind the scenes putting it all together, along with our Director of Special Education, Sue Macy, to have an inclusive program that is true inclusion is very rare. And we know that that's also the best practice for our students with disabilities, to truly be with their colleagues, their peers, in general education, and really just develop language together. We want to give recognition, so if the board would please join us, we just want to make sure that we snap this photo for the 2018 Summer Institute. So Nikiba, if you'll come back up, please. Thank you. And Salsela, come back up. And we're going to take a picture over there. And Abigail, I went into your room when the kids were singing the song as part of the language development. Christina Hernandez, come on up. And Carla. And of course, Stacy. Absolutely, and Gwen, yes, absolutely.
Closer, closer. You have to get closer, closer. Okay, closer, closer, closer. 1, 2, 3.
Now into Student Support Services, Suicide Prevention Policies and Procedures. Jerry Smith, Director of Student Support Services, and Sue Dwyer-Voss, one of our school social workers at River City.
Thank you, Board of Trustees. I'm going to go ahead and introduce this just to provide a little bit of context so that it doesn't seem like it's just out of the blue. Why are we all of a sudden talking about suicide prevention services? So State Superintendent Tom Torlakson had sent out to all the superintendents and administrators that September is being recognized as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And we're bringing this forward to the board tonight because we actually were looked upon from the CDE, knowing that we had systems and programs in place, and they actually wanted to come and visit one of our schools. According to this, just for a little bit of context of why this topic is so particularly important for our students, particularly the middle school, high school age, is that according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, suicide is identified as the second leading cause of death for youth ages 10 to 24. The research shows that for every suicide death, there are more than 20 suicide attempts, and suicide behavior is a major problem or becoming a major problem for our youth. However, the research is also showing that these suicidal behaviors can be prevented. I want the board to know that Washington Unified has truly taken on the responsibility and just the ethical imperative that we are able to prevent suicides through the use of better research, our education, and by learning how to strategically intervene to truly save lives. The CDE is a support for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and that particular organization has many resources that our staff has access to. But what I was really blown away by is that our staff here in Washington Unified had created a system, had created resources, had created a flow of diagnosing and having systems in place for when students show and demonstrate characteristics of being at risk. And so I just wanted to start off with a few slides on this one. It's the other one where, oh wait, let's go to the next one and see. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I shout out the staff that's really spearheaded this system that has been put in place, but they're just the quiet bees that we really don't know about too much. All right, so on the next slide here, I want to introduce to you the staff that, well, I guess I can do that. Whoops. So we have a picture here of our outreach specialists. Through our LCFF funding under supplemental and concentration grant funds, our Washington Unified is able to invest in supplemental services to truly address the social emotional needs of our students. Our outreach specialists are the ones that intervene at like a tier 1 and tier 2 level of our MTSS system, meaning that they're the ones going for attendance, they're the ones going for intervening and making sure that they are actually touching the students prior to it becoming a very large Tier 3 event. We have homeschool liaisons, and homeschool liaisons are truly that. These homeschool liaisons are biliterate, and we met one of them this evening, Cecela, I believe is her name. And so we have our homeschool liaisons for Spanish, for Russian, and now for our Afghanistani families, so that we are truly making a difference, connecting the school to home and talking about attendance, talking about concerns in the classroom, and just making sure that they have the information that they need. I also want to introduce you to our social workers. There are very few school districts that have the social workers that we do. These are true professional, certified, degreed social workers that have chosen to be a part of our district and to truly make a difference in the lives of our students, our most needy students. Our social workers are Tier 3 of our MTSS system, and they're the ones that really intervene and do that high-level prevention between the classroom, the student, the family, and the staff, so that we can truly make a difference on the student's educational success. This is the huge team, but I also want you to know that in the past 4 years, we have been a partner with Sac State, in that Sac State has had an MOU that the board has graciously approved to have social worker interns working in our school district. So this year we have 4. So in addition to our own team, we're teaching 4 more to hopefully come back when they're fully credentialed and be a part of Washington Unified. So without further ado, I want to, and he's no stranger, but bring our director who really manages all of our staff here in regards to the social emotional support for our students, and that's Jerry Smith, who will then introduce the person really behind the system for our suicide prevention.
Thank you, Superintendent Luna. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Thank you for that nice introduction. I'm not a stranger, and that's nice. It is Looking back at the picture that Superintendent Luna just showed you of the team as a whole, I want to remind everybody that 5 years ago when I came here, this November it'll be 5 years, we had 2.3 outreach specialists and 4 homeschool liaisons. Now we have 6 homeschool liaisons, 8 FTE of outreach specialists, and 5 full FTE of social workers. And that's a dedication from everybody, from the board, the cabinet, director level, school administrators, teachers. Everybody's recognized that the importance of supporting the social emotional needs of our students and our families, and what a meaningful portion of the educational experience it is to be able to support that. I'm truly honored. I've told you that multiple times to have the team I have. And without further ado, that leads us to our presentation this evening of the suicide prevention efforts that we work throughout the district, but we concentrated tonight's presentation on River City High School. Sue Dwyer-Boss, our social worker at River City and also at Washington High School, can attest to her experiences previously before coming here. She was a school social worker in the Thomas by herself, and trying to carry out an entire school district. So we stole her, and we got the best of everything, and so did she, because she got to become part of a team. So Sue has put together a presentation for you this evening of our suicide prevention efforts that, like I said, are River City in this presentation, but this is throughout the district, and this is how we work the system. Sue?
Before I start with that, I have a gift from our River City administration. I brought T-shirts for all of you and all the directors. This is our staff shirt this year. So I don't know who I should give them to pass them out.
Give them to me.
They have names on them. So.
You got it.
Specific individuals. And then one more handout I have that I neglected to put in the PowerPoint. I wanted you to see this. I'll get to this in a minute, but I want you to have it in your hands. Okay. So as Jerry said, I'm going to kind of focus on River City High School for this presentation, but a lot of the systems in place are happening across the district. So at River City, our goal is obviously not just to prevent suicide, but really to help improve students' quality of life. Our goal in this social emotional work is to support students so that they can be better able to learn, better able to be in a classroom, to deal with their struggles and be able to learn and get their education. So we're dealing with, in suicide prevention, mostly depression, anxiety, stress, and loss of hope, which is really a tough one. So our process when a student is suicidal, the various ways that students are identified. So the student themselves might come forward and let me know or let another staff member know how they're feeling. Teachers will often report maybe a student wrote something in a journal or in an essay or something that kind of triggered, what's going on here? I have to give a shout out to the other students on campus who really, I feel like, really watch out for each other. They will come forward, sometimes and not usually anonymously, to share, maybe something they saw on social media or something their friend has said that they're really worried about their friend. So I think at River City we've developed a really nice climate in terms of people taking care of each other. And then staff members also may, have been, or parents may have been tipped off that they're worried about their student. And then the next thing that happens is we engage the support team. So usually it's myself, the school psychologist, or the counselors that are the ones that are going to be doing the risk assessments when a student is identified. And typically it's me, but sometimes it's the others as well. We all work as a team. So at that point, we're looking at gauging the level of risk. So a low risk would be kind of defined as a student who has occasional thoughts of suicide but has never taken any action on it. They feel sad, but they're open to positive interventions. So, like, we can work with that. So they're not really suicidal, but they're starting to have those thoughts and worries. If that's the case, let me back up once, sorry. One of the prevention efforts that we have are these posters. We have made these and put them all over the school. And another really cool thing is that you may be aware there's RCTV. So students do TV segments on, the happenings around the school. And last year in the spring, we put together Mr. Hanks and his student team put together a video of how to find that support, what teachers should do in the situation, what students can do, how they can help each other, and then who to go to. So it's a really nice video. If you have a chance, go on the school's website and look up RCTV, and it's from last year. It's called Support. So I recommend it. So low risk, we would contact parents. We would complete a safety plan with the student, and at the end, I'm going to show you what a safety plan looks like. We'd inform the counselor or any other school personnel that need to be informed of what's the concern is, and then provide support on campus and or referral off campus. But typically, that would be a kid that I would see, or we also have a counseling intern this year at River City, as well as our social work intern. So we'd find a way for them to have support on campus. If it's a medium risk, it would be the student has suicidal thoughts, engages in self-harm, has begun to think about how he or she would kill him or herself, and is still open to positive intervention. So they haven't lost all hope. They want support. They want to turn things around. Again, we contact the parents, complete a safety plan, inform the counselor, provide support on campus, and we would definitely make a referral for off-campus therapy, because now we're getting a little deeper. And on campus, we can handle so much, but if it's a much deeper issue, we need them to get consistent support off campus as well. And then if it's high risk, if the student has a specific plan to kill him or herself and has the means to carry it out. And then we look at any or all of the following, and there's even more than this, but these are kind of the high ones. If the student feels hopeless and can't see another alternative, if the student has attempted suicide in the past and may or may not have been hospitalized at that time, and if the student has a family member who has died by suicide. Those kind of raise the level, as we're asking those questions. So if that's the case, we contact the parents and they need to come to school immediately. And we have a meeting with them. We would make a referral, have them take their student to the emergency room or to the new mental health urgent care, which is here in West Sac, for an immediate evaluation. So we don't evaluate, we just assess. So we're just going, is this low, medium, or high? What do we need to do to help this student? Then the parent takes them. We have them fill out a verification of this emergency conference, and I'll show you what that form looks like too. And the parents are provided with a list of community resources, as well as we make sure they know which ER they want to go to. We make sure they have a way to get there, all that kind of stuff. If the parents are unavailable, say they work way out of town and they can't get there, the SRO can also take the student. And if the SRO is not available, then we can call 911 and have a mental health clinician come and do the evaluation and transport the student. So when the student would return to school after that evaluation, or if there's a hospitalization involved, the counselor will make contact with the parent and the student, and then we'll make sure, the counselor will let anybody know any other necessary information that we may need, and let the outreach know in terms of excusing absences. We don't want to pile on for this kid. We want to make sure they have time to make up work, We want to make the transition back as smooth as possible. And then the counselor will request follow-up sessions from myself or from the school psychologist if it's a special ed student. So prevention and early intervention efforts, obviously you all know about MTSS, so that's where we're talking about our Tier 3 students, and we'll, again, make sure that none of these students are going to fall through the cracks. We're going to make sure that we're, really surrounding them with support. And we partner with a lot of community agencies to bring services to River City. Our outreach team meets monthly. We have a collaborative meeting with community agencies in the area so that we can help build those partnerships and that networking. And then, I already mentioned, we provide the counseling at school and crisis intervention for general ed, and then the school psychologist does the same for special ed students. So, this is the list of our support staff at River City, and really we all are working together to support the students. It's not just one person doing something. We're all talking about them, whether it's at the MTSS meeting or not. We meet weekly, but we're constantly talking to each other and making sure, hey, did you know about this? Have you seen that kid yet? That kind of stuff. And these are some of the agencies that are partnering with us. We have Victor Community Support Services. They provide a therapist that comes to the site to see kids. They have personal power groups. They do a drug and alcohol education group, and they do large group presentations on things like suicide prevention, stress management, anxiety, depression. We have Kevin Bracey comes monthly to work with our highest need male students. Communicare is another community agency. They run the teen clinic, and they come on site to meet with students for consultation, and they also come to see some of our students that are their clients on campus. And then Empower YOLO provides healthy relationship groups for us on campus. So we have tried to bring the community to the site to make it easier for students to get the services they need. And I just wanted to mention, I don't know if you're already familiar with this brand new Yolo County Mental Health Urgent Care Clinic. It's over across from Triangle Court, by Communicare. It's really great. So now parents can go there instead of to an ER to get that evaluation and get services. So it's a wonderful addition to this community. I wanted to mention, before I get into showing you the forms, so for last year, just to give you an idea, for last year, 2017-18, I asked our staff, our support staff, to give me some rough numbers. We don't keep a log of these risk assessments and how many we've done and all that kind of stuff. But I had them all kind of think about your students and how many risk assessments have you done and how many have actually gone for an evaluation. So how many were those highest need? So a general number for you is that about 70 risk assessments were done last year, which is about 2 a week. So, which is about right. Some weeks might be more, some weeks might be less. And our best guess at how many we sent for psych evals was 11. So 11 students last year that were at that highest need. A couple other things, this is our process if it goes the way I just sort of laid it out. But sometimes we have anonymous threats. We've had students write a suicide note in a bathroom. And then what? We don't know who it is. So then we go through this whole investigation and try to figure out who it is. And one time it was a very specific time. It's like, oh my gosh, we got to figure out who this is. So again, we all come together. We all work together. And we have figured out who that student was. Kind of an interesting example recently, we had a student come to one of our counselors with a concern from social media about a student that used to be ours but is not this year. They moved away. It was a pretty serious concern, so the counselor went to our SRO. The SRO tried to make contact at the address we had, but he's not our student anymore. Couldn't find him. So, I don't know, they did whatever investigation they could do to figure out where this student was. Student had moved to another city. So West Sac PD contacted that city's PD. They went straight to the house and called the guardian, who went straight there from work, and the kid had made an attempt. And they got there in time, and they got him to the hospital, and he's okay. So that's just another example of the collaboration, and this stuff happens all the time. I mean, to me it was really cool, A, the student came forward, right, to share the concern, and then B, those two police departments worked together to make sure that that student was safe. A teacher just yesterday told me that last Friday, after school was out, she read a note that a student had left for her that was a very descriptive suicide note. And so she immediately called CPS. CPS called the police went to the kid's home. Like, it happens like that, and it happens, unfortunately, more often than we would wish. So this work really is very important, and it's tough work. I want to share with you some of the forms that I mentioned. This is the risk assessment form we use. We don't sit down with the student and ask them these questions. We fill it out for ourselves to help us make sure that we're gauging the low, medium, or high risk, because we want to get it right. We want to make sure that the kid's getting the right amount of services and support. This is a safety plan. I know it's small, but small type. Basically, these are things I can do when I'm feeling, upset. These are people I can talk to. These are my go-to people. And crisis numbers at the bottom there. And then what I can do instead. What are my other options? And this is the verification of emergency conference. So this is if we had called the parents in. So it's basically the parents of so-and-so, were called in on this date. We've been told that our student is suicidal, and we're, directed to take them for evaluation. So we have them sign that too. And that also, they can take that with them to the ER, which I think parents find helpful because they don't know. It's scary, and they don't really know what to do and how to tackle this. So it's just take this with you, and that will let them know that the school raised this concern. And this is the resource list that we give to those parents who come for those emergency conferences. So it lists West Sac supports, hospitals, emergency rooms, and crisis lines. So they have that. Because we also want to let them know, how they can get the support they need. So they don't feel, it's very scary when this happens. I talked a really long time, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Clerk, Trustee Pizzotti?
So this is always a really difficult issue to grapple with, but thank you, first of all, to Jerry and your team for the systems that you've put in place, because you are making our community better by doing that. But one thing that I wanted to touch on was the Kevin Bracey groups that he runs with boys. Can you elaborate on what that looks like, or do you guys know?
Okay.
Each one of the schools has an opportunity to use Mr. Bracey in the means that they feel best suits their school.
Sure.
And I believe, speaking for Principal Moisich, he felt that he had a need to support male students, many of them who don't have a male role model at the house, to learn how to handle situations on campus and in their life a little bit better. So he went to Mr. Bracey and asked him if he could develop it's a group program. And there is sometimes he'll pull off some individual counseling stuff, but it's in a group format, and it seems to work really well. We started it last year, and it seems to be real positive.
So I saw this documentary by Jennifer Seibel Newsom. It's called The Mask You Live In, or The Mask We Live In? Mask You Live In, I think. And in part of the documentary, there was a group of young men in high school age, of course, and they were asked to do an exercise. And on this exercise, there was a mask, and they wrote all of the things that we let people see on the outside of the mask. And then on the inside, they were asked to write, what are the things that are never allowed to be seen? And this is especially true for how boys react versus how girls react. And that's why it kind of triggered my comment about Kevin Bracey. And when they did this exercise, everybody had the same thing on the outside of the mask. And it was fun, outgoing, strong, powerful, athletic. And then on the inside, everybody had the same thing, but what they did is they crumpled up the mask and threw it across the room so nobody would say what they're writing. And it said the same thing: sad, angry, depressed, suicidal. And that kind of really made me kind of wonder, are we getting our young men and young boys, are we reaching them? Are we touching them in a way till they know they have the ability to reach out and get help if they need it?
Yeah.
So.
I think I can safely tell you with this group, yes. Kevin doesn't happen to use masks, but he uses sunglasses.
Right.
So I've seen
exactly.
him. I've seen him do that the same similar action, and yeah, he has a great way of connecting with a lot of those kids and bringing a lot of that out. And a lot of times there'll be referrals from that situation to folks like Sue because they've seen something in the group stuff. And but he still makes it safe for them to go ahead and say it and feel like it's comfortable.
Trustee Kirby-Gonzalez?
Thank you. This is a hard conversation, but such an important conversation. I think we've all been touched by students who have had these feelings or even who have acted on them. So thank you for all that you do to Sue and Jerry. And I'm so proud and appreciative of how this department has grown over the years. And I hope Natomas hires some more people, because I don't want Washington Unified to be the only district doing great things in this area. I want everyone to be like that. And so thank you for leading the way in all of that. I have two recommendations I thought of in terms of getting this word out that because you're doing just the best things. So how we can quickly be able to share information with the public of what's happening and how students and families can easily get to it. So I'm thinking of two things if they're possible. One is that support video that if that could maybe be on the main page somewhere, just on the bottom or somewhere on the high school page, and maybe on our district site, easy to access, maybe through student services. And then also, you might have a better agency that you work with in terms of 24-hour hotlines, but there are some, WellSpace Health is one that districts use. And then for some students, it's easier to text, they say. So they can text HOPE. It's through the WellSpace Health, and there's a text line too that they can text HOPE to a number. It's 916-668-4226. And so this is such a great flyer, and this is so wonderful, and I'm so very appreciative of the work you do. And maybe we can catch those kids if they're not at school or on the weekend too, to see this information. So thank you again. Thank you.
Finally, thank you for all you do. I have my social worker bias, so it is. I had you were selected on the short list of people to be highlighted in California, and there's a reason why. So thank you for all that, and extremely impressive kind of what Jerry, you and the team have done, and what this board, even before me, has made the investment and the slow investment in growth over this team, because we know that that's part and parcel to how kids learn in these safe environments, and you're key to that. So thank you for that.
I think it's what we've all done. It really is. It's been a really great group effort.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We had a public comment on N1, but that agenda item has since passed. So we are going to move on to action item, voting on the consent agenda. So I know that we've pulled 01 and 011 into action. So do I have a motion to?
I make a motion to approve with 01 and 011 pulled to action.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor. Motion passes. So now we're on to P1, action approval of department chair job descriptions for grades 6th through 8th and 9 through 12. Andy Parsons, Dr. Andy Parsons, Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight we bring to the board recommendation of two different job descriptions. The first one is Department Chair 9 through 12, though this is not a new job in our district. As I was investigating aligning our middle school job description, I went to find this, and it did not exist. Therefore, we created a job description for 9-12. And the new job description that we negotiated with WSTA last year is for a 6-8 middle school department chair for social science, science, math, and ELA. And the purpose is to serve as a liaison between the teachers 6-8 and educational services, as well as to support our new PLT days with our professional learning communities.
Okay. Discussion? Questions? Motion?
A motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Move to action item 01, recognition and acceptance of donations to the Washington Unified School District. And Clerk Trustee Pizzotti,
Thank you.
pulled the item.
I did, and it's really nothing more than I just wanted to give special recognition and say thank you to all of those that have supported our athletics program. Athletics is certainly near and dear to my heart. It's my way that I got to college, so I feel like this is an actual pathway for some of our student athletes. So one of the things that I did want to recognize is that Malcolm Floyd, and I don't know if anybody knows who Malcolm Floyd is. Malcolm Floyd is a former NFL football player for the San Diego Chargers. He played 9 years for the San Diego Chargers. Malcolm Floyd donated $5,000 to our student athletes general fund, our athletic general fund. I just wanted to read a little something off of his Wikipedia page. So, Malcolm Floyd is a retired American football wide receiver. He played his entire professional career for the San Diego Chargers of the NFL. He was signed by the Chargers as an undrafted free agent in 2004. He played his college football at Wyoming. Floyd played at River City High School in West Sacramento, where he was an All-Metro and offensive MVP of the league. He was also first-team All-League selection in basketball, so he was a dual-sport athlete. Floyd attended Wyoming from 1999 to 2004. While there, he majored in health sciences. As a freshman, he redshirted in 1999. Floyd was first-team All-Conference as a sophomore. Floyd finished his career with 186 catches for 2,411 yards and 14 touchdowns. He was honorable mention All-Mountain West Conference as a senior. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize the point that while you may not necessarily hear of a lot of players coming out making their way to college on sports scholarships, we do have some as a pathway. And it just came out last week that Austin Roberts, and I don't know if many of you know Austin Roberts, but Austin Roberts was just named as one of the top 20 pitchers for Sacramento State. He played for River City as one of the top draft picks coming up in the 2019 draft. So we do have, great opportunities for students to come through. And I was hoping that, maybe we can in the future look to potentially have Malcolm Floyd come to our school, maybe for a homecoming game or something like that, where we can, have him be a motivational speaker at one of our events, or maybe at a football camp. Do something where we can connect with Malcolm as his alma mater, and be more work collaboratively with him on trying to help our kids get to college via an athletic pathway. So that's it.
Thank you for that description. I did not know that of him. So do I have a motion?
You have a motion.
Motion to
Motion to
vote?
accept.
I'll make a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, 01 passes. Action item 011, approval of memorandum of understanding between the City of West Sacramento Recreation Center and the Washington Unified School District. Educational Services.
Hi, thank
I didn't
you.
know.
So I pulled this item, so I know you're not anticipating giving a talk on it. My question would be, do we know how many students are being served, or how many, I should say, babies or children are being served right now with this, if there are any?
There are no children right now in daycare.
Okay.
So we bring the MOU in case we do have teen parents come.
Great.
So, in fact, I just text the principal just to make sure, and he said, no, we don't have any yet.
Okay. Well, that makes me happy, actually,
No,
that we
yet.
don't right now. And that's one of the reasons I'm a big advocate of having easy access to contraceptives in our health offices.
Right.
And so I just want to share for background, since my board colleagues weren't here when this first came about, this MOU was very creative and a little different, and very thankful for the city partnering, the rec center partnering to make this happen, so that our teen parents can still be in class and have a safe option for their children. And they needed to make some accommodations there, and they did. And so I'm very thankful for that partnership. The language does say on the write-up, it refers to student mothers. And I certainly acknowledge that often the hardship of parenting in teen years falls on the mothers. But the MOU does not specify a
fathers.
gender. So I just want to make sure that that we're all acknowledging that that this is a program that is for both parents, and hopefully, if there are any male fathers, they will step up and use this as our female. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I will look into that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
With that, I
So-
will make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, moving on to public hearing, Q1, input on draft trustee area boundary maps. Mr. William Tunick, lovely counsel.
Good evening, members of the board. Again, William Tunick with Dennis Walliver Kelly, here to speak with you again regarding the trustee area process. Wanted to also let you know that as with the last meeting, we have Dr. Justin Levitt, who's a demographer with National Demographics Corporation. They were the demographer that's been retained, I'd say, by the large majority of school districts in the state, as well as yours, to actually draw the maps as part of this process. So when we get to the questions about the maps, he'll be able to answer any of those questions. And I'm going to start actually by going through National Demographics presentation. This was a presentation that they gave a few weeks ago. I updated it a little bit, but I thought this would be a good way just to get the conversation started tonight on this process. So again, I think you've seen this slide a few times, and each time we're a little bit further down the list. This is the timeline of the process that the board has taken on, and the community involvement and public comment that the board has solicited. Again, as you remember, going back to the beginning, this process started when the district received a letter threatening potential litigation for alleged violation of the California Voting Rights Act. And what the California Voting Rights Act says is you can be subject to the board, the district can be subject to litigation if it has at-large elections. And there's certain other factors present. What at-large elections are is what you have right now, which means that everybody in the district, every 2 years, votes for either 3 members or 2 members of the board. And what the CVRA says is that can be a problem because in certain instances, that can dilute the ability of minority groups to influence board elections. And it depends on the factors in each district, but that's what the law says. One way to address that, and what I think all school districts that have addressed this issue at this point have done, is to change how you do your elections. And that is from going from this at-large type of election to what's called the by-trustee area election. And what that election looks like is more, maybe closer to what your congressperson type election. So instead of everybody in the state voting for, how many congresspeople do we have now? I should know that.
53.
53, see? Voting for 53 Congress people, you have 53, well, you have 51 districts plus your 2 senators. So you have your 51 districts, and everyone who lives in a district gets to vote for a candidate who lives in that district. But you don't vote for all 53, even though the state has 53. So, or 51, I should say. So the same thing kind of is the difference between at-large and by-trustee area elections, is that when you have by-trustee area elections, what you have to do is go through a process, and you work with, obviously, legal counsel to make sure the maps are legal, and you work with a trained demographer and really they practically draw the maps that the board ultimately approves to figure out where those boundaries are, those trustee areas, what those look like. You have to basically split the district into 5 trustee areas, and that's really what this process has been all about, is soliciting input on what those areas should look like, the demographer drawing some draft maps, and asking the public and the board for direction, really public comment, board direction on what those maps should be, and ultimately the board approving those maps, and I'll talk a little bit maybe at the end about what happens after that. But so we started this process, really the first public hearings were in June. This is the 5th public hearing tonight on the maps. There's been 3 community workshops. There's 1 more scheduled, and then on September 27th, the board is scheduled to consider adoption of what at that point would be a resolution. It's formally called a proposal, but it's a resolution saying the district would like to make the change to by trustee area elections, and here's the map of the boundaries the board would like to use. That process, that approval then goes on to the county committee. There's a few more steps for final approval. So that's kind of where we are in the process and a little bit of how we got here. One other slide that was in this presentation that I wanted to go over real quickly, and I'll try to do as good of a job. I know the demographers are the professionals on this, so I think they do a better job, but I'll try, is the either districting or redistricting criteria. And it's split up into 2 columns because there really are kind of 2 different things we're talking about here. There are federal laws that require certain types of things really for any sort of districting. And really this is more used when you're talking about congressional areas, state assembly districts, those types of things. First of all, it has to have equal population. So that means you can't have one area that has 3 times as many people as another area, because then one person doesn't mean one vote. That's what that case is all about. So you have to have equal population or pretty darn close. And all of these maps meet that requirement. Then you have to look at the Federal Voting Rights Act, and this goes next to the next point too, which is no racial gerrymandering. I could probably spend an hour or 2 talking about exactly what the test is, and I don't know if you ask all the Supreme Court justices, they necessarily agree on what the test is. The short version on that one is it's a little bit of I like to say a little bit of a Goldilocks situation, in that race does play a role in determining areas, in that you can't use the areas to split a group of protected class or minority, either ethnicity or language, and you can't also do the inverse. You can't try to take everyone who's in a particular group and draw an area that looks funny and put them all in one group so that they can influence elections in more than one area. That's really what most of what we're dealing with there. The term gerrymandering actually comes from, and I used to have a slide, I don't have it here, was in, I think it was in Massachusetts, when they were doing their house drawings, there was this thing, the guy's name, I think it was Senator Jerry, I can't remember, whatever it was. He drew this area that literally looked like a salamander. And you could and there was a cartoon drawing of it that had eyes and feet, and that was where we get gerrymandering from. So what gerrymandering is that's using the line drawing process, and most of the time when you hear about it, it's actually political gerrymandering. That's what most of the cases are about. You have nonpartisan elections, so we don't have that issue. But gerrymandering is using the districting process to draw what are usually very funny-looking boundaries for legal purposes, either racial or political. And that's what you can't do under law. And that's also something that any demographer that works with us or works with you or works pretty much with school districts across the state is not going to do. So that is, just to be clear about that, that's kind of what that whole piece of it is. So that you've got those things you definitely can't do. Then the question is, okay, how do you do this? Because theoretically there's a lot of different ways that you can do it that are still legal. And that's where the courts have said you can use what are called traditional criteria. So this is that other column. This is communities of interest, which is really the big one. You'll see the other things on that list: compactness, contiguous, visible boundaries, so that's freeways, canals, those types of things. Those are all things that I think a demographer can look at a map on a satellite and pretty much find all of those and, know pretty much where to draw the lines based on that. Where I think they look for input from boards and comment from the public is that communities of interest. Because if someone doesn't live here, they may not know where those communities are, where they start, where they end, that type of thing. So I think that's kind of gives you a lot of flexibility. One thing that school districts tend to do a lot of, and you've actually used this partially in your maps, or the demographers did at your direction, was the use of attendance areas. Those are existing boundaries that you already have that sort of do define communities of interest as to your schools, and so following those lines sometimes is a good way to kind of as a basis for where those lines go. And I think for the most part, these maps do usually do that. Of course, you can't only follow them because then you can have population and the other issues we talked about, but that can be it. The other one that's on there was that last one, the respect for the voters' wishes and the continuity in office. And really what that's about is this idea that we shouldn't, the redistricting process, or in this case the districting process, is not intended for a majority of the board to be able to draw the minority of the board off the board, right? Because if it was, then what would happen is that you could have 3 board members say, we're going to make sure that the 2 people we don't like are in one area, we know where you are, we're going to draw you into one area, and then one of you won't be on the board anymore, right? Because you can only elect one from an area. So I think the way the demographers approach it and from the legal perspective is if the voters have put somebody on the board, they should have the chance to decide whether or not they stay on the board after we move to by-trustee elections. That decision shouldn't be made through the districting process. So I think that those are all of the criteria that the demographers use when they start this process and come up with draft maps. So from there, that brings us to the 3 maps that National Demographics drafted for the district. I'm not going to go through them in great detail because I think we've talked about them several times before. There's 3 colored maps. There's green, I should know this. There's orange and purple. This is the green map, so you can kind of see it. So the colored areas are with the 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the trustee areas. The green, well, it's sort of green. We'll go with green. Dash lines are the attendance boundaries for the school. So you can see in a lot of places where those match. The other reason those won't match sometimes is that when the demographers are drawing these maps, they need to follow the census blocks or census tracts, and sometimes those and your attendance areas are not going to be the same. So that's going to explain some of the discrepancy there. But in any event, this is green, that is orange, and that is purple. And I can go back and forth, but I just wanted to go through those 3. I think really Area 3 is probably the one that changes the most between the 3 maps. And so maybe we can, if there's questions about that, I can get into that. As far as kind of next steps, the resolution that the board adopted back in May indicated the intent was to move forward with this process for implementation for the 2020 election. So I should actually make that clear since that we're, what are we, like 2 months away from an election right now. Nothing that's happening here impacts the 2018 election. This is all 2020 and beyond. And so that's why you see at the bottom it says proposed 2020 elections. Those would be the areas 2, 3, and 4 that would be up for election at the 2020 election, and then in 2022 you'd have the seats associated with areas 1 and 5 would come up for election then. So with that, if there's any questions either for myself or for Dr. Levitt, or if you want to do public comment, and then I can come back up.
Public comment first.
Okay.
Thank you, William.
Thank you.
We'll call you back up after.
Sure.
Nate Eckler.
Good evening, trustees. Thanks for having us here tonight to go through and be able to talk about this. I appreciate moving forward on the districting, and was recently out with the community forum out at the Bright campus with Trustee Pizzotti and Trustee Alcala, and found it to be very informative, and I appreciate you guys having these so that we can continue to move best ahead. I did have a couple of questions here, just looking at some of the process going through and kind of reading the overall, the initial complaint and things like that. One question I did have is, what is the process will happen once the maps are finalized, and will it go to voters? Because I've seen in the initial complaint, there was a request to submit it through the Board of Education, I believe, to bypass the voters. But also in here, we have a TBD where, it could go to the voters too. So that's certainly, looking at the next steps in implementation, is a question that I have just going through and looking in, and something I'd like to see some clarification on. And as far as looking at some of the different maps, and as they go through and go, my initial one, I like the green map. It is probably the most compact. Also, too, we're going to have to look at 2022 about redrawing these, and that looks like an area at least we can distribute some of the growth there. So maybe in 2022, those lines are not shifted all too much. So just some points that I had looking at that, and I appreciate your time.
Okay. Yeah. Next, Maria Grijalva.
Good evening. Just to thank you for the putting the community workshops in the Facebook event page. That was really important. And I wanted to thank you. I wanted to let you know that for myself, again, the green map remains the most important map. And also, I think that it's important to try to get this done and not necessarily take it to the voters. I don't think that's a wise choice. I think we need to do the waiver, and the sooner the, well, of course, whatever time frame that's done, but I think that's the best choice. I don't think it would only cost more money to take it to the voters, and we don't want to do that. We want to avoid any further cost. So thank you very much.
Board discussion? Trustee Pizzotti?
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we have William answer the question from the community that was
specific to, so the question on the table is clarification about, both comments have been made about the SBE waiver or going to the public. So clarification about the options in the process.
Sure. So just to clarify on the question about sort of what's the next steps, as I mentioned. So the next step, one way or the other, after the board adopts the resolution, is that it would go to the County Committee on School District Organization for approval of the proposal, which is what technically comes from the district. It's the next step after that there's really two options. What the Education Code says is that the proposal is put on the ballot for the voters for up or down vote on the change and on the maps. The other alternative to that is for the district to request, and this could be this would be done separate from the resolution adopting the maps, for the board to adopt a resolution asking the State Board of Education to waive the election requirement, because it's actually in the Education Code, so that's within their purview, and many districts have done that, and those waivers have been granted. So that becomes a decision sort of separate and apart from the adoption of the maps and the resolution, which I think is on track for next week, or next meeting, I should say. Then there's a separate discussion and decision on a resolution making that waiver request, if that's what the board decides to do.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
No, I want to thank you for coming and for going over the full presentation. Thank you for that. I think I said last time, we've talked about this so much that we forget that some of our community, many people in our community are still not understanding exactly what this means and what's happening. And that was clear at a recent even PTO meeting by the questions that were asked. And at the end, after a presentation, well, so what are these maps after the whole thing? So I think that the more we can talk about this and share it, the better. So thank you for that. And it's a good reminder for us as well. One piece that I had heard about, just for feedback to everyone, was as we think about the schools being somewhat balanced in terms of areas representing two school sites, in terms of boundary areas, I think that that's some feedback I heard versus an area representing, say, 3. And so there are a couple cases in here where one school might have 3 people in their boundary areas versus a school having 2 people, and that more evenly distributed, which it seems that the green map does that. And I'll just share, one other parent had talked about, well, if you live over here say in the purple, and your children go to Westmore Oaks, but you're not in the green. So understanding that this is by boundary area, and so it doesn't necessarily mean you need to live right next door to the school. You could be in that boundary area. You are the representative, just like currently right now, we, answer the phone to anybody that calls us. We are their representative. So for this situation, a few people were, saw that and go, well, if this is this color, what does that mean? So I'm really glad that the boundary areas are on here as we asked for. That's good to see. And the only last thing I'll bring up, I said it last time too, and I'm not really sure. I don't think there is necessarily a solution because to this, but just the idea that there is a gated community, and I know you can walk in on foot, but as we know when we're precinct walking, because I've done this whole city, is it's hard to get in on foot versus driving, and which is so much more efficient. So I do worry about a community that might be disenfranchised, and then having access to get their voices out when there's a gate. I don't know if this can be fixed in any of these, but I just think it's important to note. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I unfortunately haven't been able to, because of Brown Act rules, haven't been able to be at any forum with them since the maps have been discussed. So I appreciate everything that my colleagues actually have brought up here. I did, however, wonder whether or not it would be possible, I think that you actually made this comment, is that the demographer, not per our direction, just per kind of their course of business, assumed that the voters voted us, the current board, on to the seats. So you took our addresses into where we lived into account.
Was that a question? Sorry.
No. I'm not yet
Okay.
there. And so I'm wondering whether or not it would make sense to draw a map that did not take our addresses where we lived into account, but followed more closely along attendance boundary lines. And I would like to see a map that is more balanced along attendance boundary lines as much as possible.
Yeah, so I guess I would say 2 things. I mean, obviously, and I won't speak for Dr. Levitt, I'll let him answer, but, the demographer can, if there's board directions to draft a revision to the map, that's obviously something that the demographer will do. 2 points on that. One is, in order for adoption to happen at the September 27th meeting, whatever map is going to be adopted, whether it's these or something else, needs to be posted by next Friday, or excuse me, a week from today. So we can do it, I think, a week. I'm going to commit, Dr. Levitt, if that's something the board wants. The other thing I would just mention, though, is that as far as using the attendance boundaries areas, that, and I think you sort of alluded to this, we'd still have to respect those basic requirements, especially population and the ethnicity issue, so that in a lot of cases, it may be a little bit closer, it may not be much closer, I don't know.
They may look the same, so I just,
yeah.
for my own edification.
Yeah, I don't know, Dr. Levitt, I'm not sure if you heard that question. It was whether it'd be possible to draw a map, I believe, based more on the attendance area boundaries and not necessarily taking into account trustees' residence area or address.
I mean, we could certainly draw another map. I think I would want more specifics, or need more specifics, in terms of which attendance areas in particular you are discussing or would like to see unified, so that we have some direction, because many of these attendance areas will have to be divided by population in one way or another. So which attendance areas in particular would you like to see kept together?
So Southport, Stonegate, Bridgeway, right, and the north. I mean, I would love to get some more probably community input on what those north kind of neighborhoods kind of look like between Westmore Oaks, Westfield, Elkhorn, and Riverbank. Am I missing another one? So everyone.
So
No, I mean, so we're trying to figure it out, like, so Southport, Stonegate, Bridgeway, and then how, just curious whether or not Westmore Oaks and Westfield, or is it Elkhorn and Westfield, or River, I don't know if it's for discussion, whether or not that makes sense to folks. like Elkhorn and Westmore Oaks, or Riverbank on its own, it's part of discussion, right? And unless nobody else really, I mean, it's up for discussion if there's no desire to do that.
Well, my piece was mostly looking at trying to balance that each area represented, it looks like 2 of our K-8s or our K-5. To me would be an important piece versus one area having maybe 1 school and one having 3.
Okay.
Or, so I think that, but I think that, I mean, I'm doing my math, and I think that is done pretty well in the green map versus the others. I'm just seeing a couple discrepancies in terms of school boundaries, with the other having 3, and then I don't know if a school has 1.
So even distribution of no more of school represented someone no more than 2, is that right? Or?
Yeah, I think if they could have a balance all throughout, I think that's an important piece. But we do have different school populations, so I mean, it's.
Right.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
it's almost impossible to
this
do, so I don't know how you do that.
And it comes to the idea, I think, which was the issue at the beginning, was feeling incredibly uncomfortable sitting in this seat,
Right.
making a decision for all of West Sacramento voters when we're in this seat. It's just an incredibly challenging and difficult place to be in. And I heard loud and clear, too, the idea that the board decision, the purpose of CVRA is not to change voters' requests, and it just makes for a very difficult conversation in terms of board members taking out board members, and so I think looking at school representation, to me, makes the most sense.
Right. So one of the I guess common threads that I've heard in the community forums, I've been to 2 and now a PTO meeting, is that the green map has been almost unanimous in terms of selection by the community. Personally, I would hate to get away from what the community is telling us, because that's the reason why we're holding these forums, is to hear from the community what their choices are. And so far, it seems like I did the very beginning community forum when we didn't have a map, and one of the comments was to give 2 areas to include the Riverbank and the Elkhorn Westfield area, 2 trustee areas, and then to ensure that the Stonegate, Southport, and Bridgeway area all had trustee areas. That was one of the first ones, and I think that was one of the first comments that I heard, and that kind of has resonated throughout the rest of the forums that I've heard, was that, especially at the last one, the community really was pretty much all in favor of the green. So I personally, I don't really care, but I don't want to go against what I'm hearing from our community members. But, I mean, if that's the will of the board, then so be it.
I mean, just adding a map that doesn't include that along kind of everything else that we've balanced out makes, even, again, the community members keeping those neighborhoods intact at the very first forum. And then, I think that, what was the letter? The letter wanted to, the last 3, however those boundaries are between the 3 Southport schools.
Right.
That would mean Westfield and Westmore Oaks. But again, I think we also need to take into account, and demographer does this, right? The balanced populations.
Yeah, and if I may, I was just going to say on that point, I mean, I think that, and again, not to put words in Dr. Levitt's mouths, but one thing that's difficult about looking at these types of maps is that we have large areas, and you do off to the west and a little bit to the south, or at least that show up on this place, that are less populated. It looks like there's more flexibility to move the lines than there might actually be, because if you move a line a little bit in some of these populated areas, you can move a big chunk of population pretty quickly, and can't make up for it by pulling an area that doesn't have anybody living there. So, that being said, if the board's direction is to try to come up with a different revision with some direction, then I keep volunteering him to do this, but
absolutely.
You're not objecting, are you, Dr. Levitt?
Well, yeah, is he objecting?
No, I mean, obviously there are places like, for example, the Elkhorn, the Elkhorn Riverbank border, where it actually doesn't follow census block geography at all. It goes right through several census blocks along that border, the northern border between Elkhorn Village and Riverbank. But if we have some specific directions, we can start with the green map and kind of think of it as an improvement of the green map.
One thing that the green map does differently than the others, because I've heard critique too of, unfortunately, I mean, we like to think of our city as being fully united, but I have heard people say, you know, how many people live in the north, how many people live in the south? And if we look at, I don't know, say this canal, if we look at the canal, the green map could potentially have 4 people living to the north of the canal,
Right.
with 3 to the south, where the other ones are kind of balanced half and half. But I think that the potential is there too, that we could have representation even with
Yeah.
4 places, so.
Yeah, I mean, again, it may not be, it doesn't just, it's out there, right, without consideration to our board. I think, as it was described, the orange map followed most closely, not the most popular. My understanding is the orange followed most closely of all the maps against attendance zones. Maybe that's what you actually play with. And again, it may be a map that the public doesn't want, but maybe modifying the orange map without consideration to our addresses.
Well, it looks like purple's more closely.
I think that when I took the notes, the demographer had said that the map that had the most attendance zone balance was the orange map. Not that it was perfect, but it was the most attendance zone balanced.
I was looking at the notes.
Now, it may not meet some of the other criteria that impacts litigation because of the percentage of specialized populations, just naming that. But I think that that's something that, I think it's easier probably because there is a map that, from what I recall, that the demographer tried to do attendance zones.
Yeah, and Dr. Levitt, do you have a sense of which one of these is maybe the most closely aligned with the attendance zones, if I may? Sorry to interrupt.
I think each of them keeps different attendance areas together or apart in different ways, and some attendance areas are simply easier to keep together than others. For example, the orange map is the only one that's able to kind of keep that northern border of, I guess, you know, the orange map and the purple map both keep the Elkhorn Village attendance area together in different ways. The green map ends up dividing that because it tries to create 2 districts in that northern portion of the city that are kind of more horizontal rather than vertically aligned. On the other hand, for example, Stonegate is kept together in all 3 maps because of its geography. It's a very difficult area to divide, and dividing it risks also dividing an Asian American community that lives in the Stonegate neighborhood.
Right.
And you know, I think especially with Westmore Oaks, the thing is there's population for not 3 entire districts in the south. It's 2 and a little bit. And so if we have to go northwards out of the Bridgeway, Stonegate, Southport, we have to go through Westmore Oaks. And so figuring out which way to do that or how to do that, I think Westmore Oaks gets divided somehow, no matter what, simply because it's right in the center. But it does different ways. The green map, for example, keeps as much of the western area together as possible and the eastern area together. Perhaps other maps, such as orange, try to really keep as much of Westmore Oaks together as possible, even though it's not 100%. So it really varies from school to school because oftentimes keeping one school attendance area together means dividing another.
Yeah. So understood. So I think that kind of, again, going back to my notes, is that the orange was the one that was most attendance zone balanced, to see if there is, orange or purple. Now I hear it's orange or purple because that's what was described. Taking, I don't know if there's a preference for one of those maps to then think about not include where we live. and drawing a map that would be, does that make sense?
Do you specifically see a community of interest that's been divided so they know what area to focus on?
I don't know if it's a community of interest. Again, it's just a question of whether or not we want to, if we want to see a map that does not include our residential addresses, that's not drafted based on where we live. And again, it may not be the map that people like, because it seems like the green map is what everybody likes. I put it on the table, so
No, sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to.
So I need other.
It sounds like he needed.
I need other confirmation.
It sounded like
so uncomfortable talking.
It
about
sounded
this
like
right
he
now.
needed
It's like,
direction
I
of
don't-
what area that you're talking about, though, and
don't
so
know.
that's where I'm not sure what community interest or what piece you're saying, and so it's hard to. I'm just trying to understand exactly what you mean, so we can give direction to see what you want.
We need to look more at demographics than anything.
So, Dr. Haddish, so you said that Westmore Oaks is going to be split irregardless, correct?
Dr. Levitt, did you?
Robert.
Yeah, sorry. The question was Westmore Oaks was to be split regardless, pretty much.
I think, yeah, the orange map gets the closest to avoiding splitting it, but even that has to split it because there's too many people in Westmore Oaks to keep it all together.
Right.
Most of the area outside of the Bridgeway portion that go northward have very few people in them.
Interesting.
And Westmore Oaks will be divided, I think, just simply because it crosses the city right in the center, and there's not an even number of districts to the north or the south of Westmore Oaks.
Yeah.
Well, the pro of splitting it is then, like we talked about, you can have two representatives
right.
for a school site. I mean, I know people are still only going to be able to vote for one person in this situation, but a school could have two representatives versus this map, the orange map having one representative for Westmore Oaks, but three for another school. We got into what we heard from the community that was a concern. So just
One of the things that I think keeps getting lost when they say representative for two schools is that regardless of that school having two representatives, this board is responsible to the district, not the school. And I just want the community to remember that we can't let districts separate what we're doing here as a board. I don't want us to be beholden to an individual school or two schools. So we have a fiduciary responsibility to the entire district.
That's true.
And we need to make sure that that is our clear mission and our clear vision and priority, is that we make sure that we are representing everybody, not just our schools or our little area. Maybe those areas are the ones that elect us, but we are representing everyone, and that's really important. We can't let that.
Yeah. So back to the question, is there no desire to draw a map that does not take into account our residential addresses? Is it too complex?
I'm okay to do that if you had, I was just,
So
it
could we
sounded like
take,
there was direction
Westmore,
of what
right, so the
school.
question is like, so can we look at a map that might keep Westmore Oaks together as much as possible? Or?
If I understand, is it possible to draw a map that puts Westmore Oaks together as
I
much
guess
as
that was your
possible?
question, right, so again.
I think, if you start with the orange map, you could make a very minor change and put it into two districts. That little triangle that's in the blue to the west of Jefferson Boulevard has 0 people living in it. And
Okay, well.
Wait, say that again?
This thing right here, is that? No.
So,
No, the west.
if the question was, is it possible to put Westmore Oaks in as few districts as possible?
Mm-hmm.
You could start with a District 3 or Trustee Area 3 that looks very much like the orange map.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I would do is just add those sections that are in Area 2, the blue, on the online viewer, into Area 1. Because there's almost no population from Westmore Oaks in Area 2. There's about 150 people living in the triangle west of Jefferson Boulevard, and there's no people in that triangle.
We're 84.
In the opposite triangle.
Right here.
And so
okay.
we could simply put that into red, and then we could take a little bit of population out of District 1, or Trustee Area 1, and put that into 2. And that would put Westmore Oaks in 2 trustee areas only, using the orange concept.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And then you could play around with areas 1 and 2. If you like the arrangement in green better, we could draw areas 1 and 2 in from the green map, for example, and have an area 3 that looks more like it does in orange.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to say this. I didn't have a say in drawing these maps from the very beginning. I had no input in this. I want to be clear. So I'm not comfortable making any suggestions coming from us. But if it's coming from the community, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I would say, to me personally, I want to keep as hands-off as possible and let the community, after, say, we have our next forum, if they were making suggested amendments to a map.
I believe that there have been comments made about whether or not these clearly have our address, and there have been concerns that have been raised.
Okay.
So I'd just be transparent from my understanding. And so just to be transparent, let's just add a map that does not factor into where we live, and see how if green is green, I just think for transparency purposes that there have been, to avoid litigation, that we should probably just have that map.
So you're saying to orange?
I think so. I think that what he was describing kind of makes sense, however he was describing it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's an important point to make clear. So I want to say that too, because we did have a community member say, well, wait, you're voting on these maps and you're doing what? And I want to make it very clear that this was not our decision to create these maps and do this in this way, because I understand exactly what they're talking about. And I'm so glad you made that point.
We had no say-so in this whatsoever.
Yes, we did not give any comments before the maps were made, and nor did we draw them, nor did we initiate this process.
Correct.
So.
That is all correct. That is
And
all
it's not
correct.
our decision. Also, we're following legal process to do the voting.
Yeah. But for transparency, that it was raised, so can we just have a map that does not include that's orange, like everything he talked about orange without.
For the next meeting.
For the next meeting. Okay.
So just for our benefit here, so the direction is a variation on the orange map with maybe the minor changes that were just discussed as far as the Westmore Oaks area.
Yeah.
And then also
Do not factor in
not
the
taking into
residential.
account the location. Are there any other criteria that you want to use other than, okay. Dr. Levitt, is that clear for you to go forward?
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask, is the direction to essentially keep 2 entire districts in the south and only have one that kind of crosses over through Westmore Oaks? That's what I'm kind of gathering from this conversation. I just want to make sure I understand correctly.
We're not in that conversation.
Yeah.
You recommend what you think is best for the, we like the orange map, redraw the orange map without consideration to where we live.
Okay.
Whether that be 2 in the south, 3 in the south, 4 in the north, come back to us with what you think.
Well.
Okay. Okay. And trying to keep the attendance areas together as much as possible. A maximum of 1 division per school if possible, following census blocks.
Right.
And population requirements and Voting Rights Act requirements.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That shouldn't be hard at all.
Sorry, we'll let the professional do it.
Yeah. That's why we have the big bucks.
Yes.
Right, that we have to pay.
Okay, so we will go ahead with that. Like I mentioned, if a new revision of the map would be posted in order to board consider on the 27th by the 20th. So that'll be online, and then on the 27th, we'll be back, make a decision.
I was just wondering, would it be possible to have it by the 19th for the next community forum?
Dr. Levitt, I'll leave that one to you. Would it be possible to have the revision by the 19th?
We can certainly have it, we'll certainly have it you can certainly have it ready to be posted by the 19th.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether or not it will be available for discussion, I'll leave that up to the lawyers.
Yeah.
7-day window.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, the 19th is a community forum, not a board meeting,
Right,
so that
yeah.
shouldn't be.
Okay, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we'll
That's
work to get it
perfect.
done by then.
'Cause
And
we
I'll
want, we
re-
want the community to have the ability to have comment on it.
And I'll remind everyone too, as we're wrapping up, that they can give feedback online.
Yes.
And
Right.
that will go right to demographer, right to everyone. So any feedback people have, if they're not able to make this meeting or one of the other meetings, that certainly we want their feedback and they can do that online.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the discussion, everybody, and
thank
thank
you.
you for entertaining the new map.
Thank you, Dr. Levitt.
Next, we're moving on to our board governance. R1, action call for nominations for directors at large, API and Hispanic. I don't know if folks on the board have any recommendations for who they might want for either. For transparency, somebody else wanted to vote at me for API at large, and I declined because I'm going to be part of the CSB Equity Network with Trustee Kirby Gonzalez, so that was just a little bit more on my plate. But if, I don't know if either trustees presently have an idea.
My plate is full as well.
Of other people
As is
who
mine.
might be representing API or the Hispanic directors at large. I wanted to do my due diligence as one of the CSBA delegates, John Gordon, reached out and wanted us to consider nominating him for the Hispanic at large. I have some, some information about him. I mean, I've worked with him for a little while. He's been a delegate from 2011 since present. He's been part of the CSBA Legislative Committee. I haven't really sat down with him in depth. I don't know if you.
What board
I
is
don't
he
know.
on? What board is he on?
He's on GALT.
So why is Galt not recommending him, I wonder?
And then Galt is also he's
okay.
trying to get as many boards to support him in his run for director at large as possible. So again, I have no horse really in this race. So at due diligence, he would reach out to me, and I wanted to be transparent that.
How do you know him? How well do you know him?
He works at CDE.
Oh,
With the
okay.
Department of Education. He actually he works over facility bonds.
Oh.
Well, if we don't have a recommendation, then I think that opens the door more for him, but I feel
I would
uncomfortable if
say,
I don't know.
yeah, I
Yeah,
got
if you
no
don't
problem
know
with that. I don't know him, so I trust your judgment.
Okay, so the direction is just to trust my judgment? Okay.
Your recommendation. if
Okay, so
that's
let me
your
talk, let me
recommendation.
forward and talk to him and bring back more information, as I think President Alcala probably has some questions since it's Hispanic at large as well. Can I do that? Sure. Direction from the board? That's
fine.
Okay, we'll take that action. R3, action, second, read and approve of board policy 3350, travel expenses, business and non-instructional operations. Chris Mount Benitez, Chief Business Official, is what I have.
Good evening, trustees. Tonight is the second reading of the revision to the policy that was recently revised, policy number 3350, giving the option back to the employees of either requesting per diem or submitting itemized receipts and taking the paperwork burden back down to levels that it was 2 years ago.
Okay. Do I have questions or a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Board and superintendent comments. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez?
Sure. Okay, so I recently went and visited some of our flexible seating that was approved in this boardroom, and tried them all out, actually, too. Some of the students were gracious and let me sit in their chairs, and they were quite fun, I have to admit. And it was great to see the seats in action and see how teachers are using them, and I hope that they are making their way out across our district, so we have some good equity there, not just at, one site or another, that as we look at refreshing and replacing, and it was a significant cost, of course, to do that. And so it was great to see that. And while I was there, that was at that was at Stonegate Elementary School. I also got to see buddies in action in the garden, and it was just wonderful. Every time I step onto our campuses, I'm very thankful for what the PTOs have helped create, and then what the teachers are doing, and what all the staff members are doing for support. It's really nice to see that. A policy that I would like us to look at is our maternity and paternity leave policy. I don't know if my colleagues are aware, but there is a provision, and I just would like more information to know if we can even take action to make a change. But where currently, if you have two parents in our school district who work in the district and they want to take leave, that they're dinged. One person can take the leave. They cannot both take the leave. And I've seen this also in other school districts, so we are not unique to doing that, but it seems really unfair to ding employees that we're so thankful to being in our district. So I'd like to look at that and to learn more and to know what we can do there. And with that, I would also like to share out, I think that's all I'm going to share out for that piece. And then I did want to share that there is a concert in the park that is free, and it will be over at Bright Park, the Kaboom Playground area, and it is on Saturday in West Sac Play. Full disclosure, I'm also a board member of West Sac Play, but they are organizing this event, and it is free. There will be food trucks, and a portion of the food truck costs will go towards West Sac Play, which is a nonprofit, which is our current goal is working to add shade structures to our parks. And so one park is in Bridgeway, next to Bridgeway Island. The other park is Summerfield, which both get a lot of use. And when that decision was made, the city was working on the shade structure in Bright. And so that's where we will be. So if you would like to come and have fun, come Saturday at 5:30 to 8:30 and say hi.
Excellent. Clerk Trustee Pizzotti. I don't know how. Clerk Pizzotti?
Trustee Pizzotti's fine. Yeah, let's see. So I hosted a forum with Trustee Alcala on the maps from the CVRA, and it was really well attended. I mean, it was, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 17 people there, and they all had really good questions. It did kind of fall off a little bit from the intended purpose, just a shade. It got more into a conversation about resources, and that's why I made the comment about we all have a fiduciary responsibility to the district as a whole, and we're not representative just to these districts that are electing us. Our responsibility is to the children of the entire district. And, we got into a conversation about equality and equity and how that kind of boils out, because part of the comments were made, well, the north area is not getting the resources it deserves. And I said, I don't believe that to be true at all, especially from this board. Maybe in past boards that might have been the case. I don't know. I wasn't on it. But I know that this current board is committed to making sure that there is equity in the resources that we provide. So that took up actually a large chunk of our conversation. And then towards the end, we got to the conversation about, which map do people, prefer? And the majority of people preferred the green map, with a smattering of people not preferring to do this. So it was, there was some people that were saying, why are we doing this still today? Why are we doing this? And that was a question that we brought up in the beginning. We're doing this because of the threat of a lawsuit. And, then the question kind of came up as like, well, how many people are suing, And so that was another dicey question. So, is this truly community motivated, or is this not? And so we kind of got off topic. But one of these are important questions that people need to hear, and they need to, especially when they see changes, into the way they vote. This is going to be a very big issue. And, there were a couple of people that said, I don't prefer any of the maps. I don't want things to change at all. And then, but the lion's share of people said the green map because primarily it looks more contiguous, and that's, and to be honest with it does look a little more contiguous, but in my personal opinion, I look more at the demographics, and that's what this is all based on is demographics. Largely in terms of what we're trying to do and protect the communities of interest as well as protective classes. So anyway, that was September 5th. And then, was it Tuesday night? Was it Tuesday night, I think? The PTO meeting? Mm-hmm. I think it was Tuesday night. On Tuesday night, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez and I were at Bridgeway Island's PTO meeting, and Superintendent Lou, I forgot, and Yorgos were there. We had the opportunity to give a presentation based on the CVRA, and that's where a lot more confusion kind of came in. It was really, people are just not connected. They don't know why this is going forward. They don't know, what is happening and why do we have these maps, and where did these maps come from? And it was really it was unfortunate that we only had 15 minutes and we didn't have enough time to really answer many questions. But at that meeting, there was certainly a larger sentiment of, I don't want to change anything. I like being able to vote for 3 and then 2 and then 3 and then 2. So that kind of sentiment was a little more popular at that area. Nobody actually gave feedback on any of the maps, even though it wasn't the forum to do it. We certainly would have taken it, but we did give them instruction that you can go online and give feedback if you see changes to the maps that you would like to make. So that was certainly it was an interesting conversation. There's definitely a lot more confusion in that area as to what's going on and what's happening. So then I attended the memorial today with Trustee Wong at Southport for Kelvin, Julie, and Lucas. It was quite touching. I love seeing the community come together to support one of its own, and the family, the Hodges family. There's still, a year later, so many tears. And it was really, it was a very sad moment, but it was very nice to see all the students supporting each other, all the students coming up and giving the mom a hug, and all the parents hugging the family, as well as Trustee Wong, as well as the release of the 3 doves, which was really quite moving, because when the doves took flight, they all stayed together. It's pretty impressive. And with that,
Oh, okay. I will be short and sweet. I don't have a lot to say. Thank you for all who were able to come out or even just send love and prayer and thought today. I think that meant a lot. Yeah, I think it means a lot to the family to know that we're in the hearts and minds of the family. I was able, again, I mentioned earlier, went to the 2018 Education Equity Summit held by Address West. I have a thumb drive to pass on to staff who might be interested in presentations. How do you really use the data that we have without kind of getting that PTSD of NCLB kind of like freak out, to understand that there's a continuous cycle of improvement, and what are we doing, kind of the things that I had mentioned earlier, is like, we build on professional development and strong leadership, and all of our leaders, including from our teachers and our principals and us as well. So I'm going to hand that that thumb drive that I actually don't, it's in my other purse, I'll hand it over next time. But that's all I have to add, because I know that we are going to be doing it's a future board agenda item, right? No?
We already adopted it, sorry, I just thought about it.
So, yes, in any case, so hoping, I know that we're going to have a board session, study session on it possibly in the future, so just wanted to kind of put that out there. Hopefully these resources provide us some guidance and framework to not be afraid of what we see and see kind of the bright spots that are happening in our district. So with...
Sorry, I'm sorry, can I say one quick
Yep,
thing?
go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I was confusing in my comments. For a future board agenda, I think it would be good to revisit our policy on board member trips and conferences, because we had a policy that they would come before us.
That is-
And so I want to make sure that we are doing due diligence and that we are following our board policy. I'm
And-
sorry to
and I had one
add
more
that.
thing,
That's
too.
okay. Okay, yes.
Sorry.
Trustee
And I
Sung.
actually just wanted to thank you, Trustee Wong, for organizing some of the event at Southport. I know that's your community where your children go to school, and it was, very moving for you and it touched you personally. And I just want to make sure that I said thank you to you for doing that.
Thank you. Well, again, it was not me, it was the entire community, so. With that said, Superintendent Luna, you have some good news for us.
Thank you, Vice President Wong and Board of Trustees. My update tonight, I will begin because I do believe also always in honoring the lives of our children. And so today marks the one-year anniversary of the tragic loss of our 3 students at Southport School community. Today, to remember the lives of these beautiful children, we had our community release 3 doves in their memory and their honor. And so Calvin, Julie, and Lucas will always remain in our hearts. I've mentioned before and referred to this phrase that it takes a village to raise our students. And it really truly is that, about the whole village. And we see it continuously throughout our district, such as today with the Southport community. You've heard the systems that are in place for the social emotional needs of our students and how we as a school district address that, and the very many hands that come into play on that. So I wanted to just kind of take a little bit of pieces of my last 2 weeks of how we have been intertwining and connecting with our community and our different agencies on behalf of our students. So last week, I sat on a panel for the Chamber of Commerce, one of their monthly luncheons, and they always have special topics. This particular topic was about college and career readiness and what is Washington Unified, the city, and other entities doing in regards to our students. So this is one of the slides that I showed at this particular luncheon. And so basically in the college and career readiness, where other agencies besides our school district are connected, really goes to that home run initiative that the city has put in place on behalf of our youth. Our panel members were to the left there, on my left here. You see the Dean of Students, Dr. Art Pimentel. Congratulations to Dr. Pimentel for completing his doctorate. We also have in that picture behind me the president of the Chamber of Commerce here for West Sacramento. And that was really important for the chamber to hear our presentation, because it is through our industries and through our businesses that our students are able to have more opportunities for internships, or even if not a paid internship, but a work experience is what, and Dr. Parsons and other staff are looking more into that. If we're not able to get to the paid internship level of a senior in high school, perhaps work experience, which many of them do, would be advantageous to our students. Next to him is Ian Winbrook, who is kind of like the chair of this home run initiative and kind of weaves it all together, and this point person in the city. And then on the end there is, thank you. I don't know why it just went out of my mind. Chris Warden, who works for the West Sacramento Foundation. And his part of this whole picture of our kids having all of these opportunities to be ready for college and ready for a career is about the digital badging, which I think if we just simplified it, it's kind of like the concept of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, where you're going to receive patches or badges for completing certain projects, and it's the same concept as a digital badge. So basically, we are working together, creating future opportunities for our students to ultimately then make a positive impact back to our community and abroad. Another entity that is working with our district, this entity is called FitGuard, and FitGuard just recently was shouted out on Good Day Sacramento here at Yellow High School. They donated $100,000 to Yellow High School for fitness and gym equipment to replace that, so that students would really actively engage, because it's really like the setup of where we would go. I wish I would go, maybe, to an actual gym after hours or to, after work. But they brought that to Yellow High School so that our kids could actually benefit from that. So we give a shout out to FitGuard and to Good Day Sacramento. Since our last board meeting, at least since I've been in my last board meeting, I've been to back to school night, and I spent time over at Westmore Oaks. Of course, when you enter Westmore Oaks, they always have the band playing as parents and community members enter the back to school night. I spent most of my time in middle school science, which I'm really glad that I don't have to take any science tests. But the reason why I'm showing this to you is because I want you to see that our teachers are embracing the new standards and looking at different ways of teaching outside of a textbook. And what you see there, I saw this in all the 7th grade science classes, and you see the standards on the boards. You see also that they're using overarching questions, essential questions for the students to be prompted on what to look for in their information and just how then to research and find information. So doing good things over at Westmore Oaks. Today, Washington Middle College High School had their initial WASC review, and I'm 99.9% sure that the WASC review went really well, because it did, at least during the time that I was there. I want to give a shout out to our principal, Sean O'Neill, who has really embraced this new opportunity of how kids can go to high school and also have other college opportunities. This is a really cool picture. This is their cafeteria stage. But what they are doing is evolving it into what colleges have as student centers. Right. And what's really beautiful about that stage is that parents of one of our employees donated all that brand new furniture for our kids. Nice. And then, of course, they all set that whole library or reading area up. And the kids of the Middle College High School they love that space. So they're going to be evolving that whole space into the college student center that lots of our colleges have. So it's a pretty exciting place. It's a different school from last year. Last year, in just that whole first year of it being in existence, they had 30 students. This year, we have 75.
Oh, good.
And so we are just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And actually, this morning when I was there on campus, we had a parent and a student touring the school also. Okay. People are still looking. And so I'm really excited about this in that it provides an opportunity for our students. They're doing lots of different activities, such as a Unity project that they had here, where it wasn't just their students, but they allowed people who came to their Unity cultural awareness evening. Kids just picked up paintbrushes and added to their mural there. So they're just very open-minded and a different way of learning, and the kids are incredibly engaged in their collaboration and their discussions academically. So big shout out to Washington Middle College High School. Yesterday, principals, Assistant Superintendent Lee and Parsons and I attended a presentation by Dr. Tyrone Howard. And this is in our partnership that we have with ICLE and Houghton Mifflin, that they do the rigorous curriculum design work with us. They had a special presentation by Dr. Howard, who's an author of many books, particularly about equity. And his topic was why equity matters. And I think it's just really appropriate to really engage in this as we look at how our LCAP has investments of equity. And Trustee Pizzati and all of the trustees here really should be commended for taking the opportunity of what the LCFF was truly made for, and that was to provide equitable access for those students who are historically underrepresented and underserved through these special funds. And so as we begin the transformation and the transitions in our culture of a school district, moving further into our trajectory for public education, we have to talk about this E word of equity. And many people in the struggle of equity, sometimes we get the pushback of, well, you're going to take away from some to give to others, and that some that you're taking away from might be my students. Mm-hmm. But what we know is that as a community, when we support the areas that are most needy, then we all are winners for that, especially as an organization. So part of it, of the lens of equity, as we look at it, one of the questions was what groups are most in need for these practices. So last year we looked at the discipline matrix, and we found some discrepancies in there. We've also been looking at suspensions of African Americans. As last year, we really did an analysis as administration of why are we disproportionately suspending our African American students with special needs. So that question has come again, and that's what looking at the lens of equity does, is makes us to ask questions and look at the data. The second area that we look at as we look at equity is about our programs. So this year, our kindergarten through second grades are going through early literacy intervention, because that was not in place for many years. Under the No Child Left Behind structure, we had to put so many resources all those years into intervention from 4th through 8th grade that we did not put our resources into early literacy to prevent that 4th through 8th grade intervention from happening. So we're shifting that to catch the babies when they're early on, to prevent that huge gap of academic, of discourse there. So we are working on that in early literacy. The third one has to do about our stakeholders being involved. You know, equity isn't a real nice subject to talk about. It's not a happy subject to talk about. And we need to do a better job in getting our stakeholders involved, because we haven't really involved them too much, but we must. In order to address things, we have to really talk about them, as uncomfortable as they may be. The next one is about the barriers, removing barriers. Barriers so simple, such as a schedule. Barriers such as our past practices. Are they appropriate for now, for what our students today need versus 10, 15, 20 years ago? And also, maybe there's some barriers we've been addressing, such as a lack of training and maybe our own assumptions. So we heard our WSTA report refer to the unconscious bias training, which we really would embrace in collaboratively entering into a training of that at all levels of the district. And that's when we address our assumptions that could be our barriers. Lastly, we look at how are we going to address the issues when we see them. Do we just talk about it? Because we like to do that a lot. Do we talk about it? Or do we blame others, which is pretty easy to do? Or do we put our efforts to come up with a positive resolution for the impact of our students? And that's really then taking the data straight into action. So lastly, Vice President Wong, you actually said this quote tonight, and you didn't even see my PowerPoint. Equity is being boldly unapologetic about serving our most vulnerable students. That means talking about equity are very tough conversations. And so when we address the challenges of the most needy, we all will benefit from that. So one way that River City has already put in place some of their lens on equity is they have invited Sandy Holman. Now, Sandy Holman is a very popular person in Yolo County. She has been the facilitator for the past 3 years, since it was actually started 3 years ago, and Washington Unified has always been the partner of funding this particular event, and that is the African American Youth Leadership. Sandy Holman is really the guru behind really engaging in the deep conversations for African American youth. She's going to be working with Woodland High School and our Cesar Chavez program that's located in our campus, but she's also going to be meeting with our parents at River City High School on September 27th, really addressing the African American population and what is their lens of school, and when we hear it in another lens. In our MTSS Tier 3, I wanted you to know that I visited for a very short moment the first youth court training. So the training, students actually volunteered to be a part of this project. And so in asking students who would like to be a part of it, so we brought a few students together. We even had some staff come to be trained. And the best part of it is that we have partners. We're not doing this alone. So we have our Yolo County Deputy District Attorney Schaub, who has committed to being with our district for the first trimester and helping to train about youth court itself. And our students actually had to train through practice, so they learned and defined the roles of the youth court components. They practiced. They had scripts, so they were able to go through training by practicing. Whenever a case comes up, at least we have those who are going to try it out.
Project-based learning?
What's that?
Is that project-based learning?
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. Also want to let you know that our administration has been going through some professional learning community training, and this is pretty heavy duty too. We're basically doing learning by doing. And this is through Dr. Mary Hopewell, who is not only just doing this work with the administration, she's also doing coaching. She's working with all of our principals and just on how we do our business, how we make decisions, how we have discussions that are student-centered, how we monitor and check in on our students throughout the school year. So it's pretty exciting work, and as you can see, they're very thought-provoking as well. So our goal is when the administration gets trained, then what we train in is what we want to exemplify at all of our schools and across our departments. So I was pretty excited to see that on Wednesday we have our professional learning time, and there you have a picture of teachers going through some of the PLC components of setting norms and how they're going to work together on Wednesdays, and also what are SMART goals, defining what that is, and how can they then determine SMART goals for their grade levels. Lastly, I just want to let you know that the Bright Cafe is open for business.
Nice.
They're open every Thursday now with a full menu. You can either eat there or you can take it to go.
Oh.
But our students are serving from 10:15 to 1:15, and it's pretty exciting because we started this program 2-3 years ago, and here we am with this goal of opening for business, that our students can actually apply what they've been learning and getting certified in our culinary pathway. So just a reminder, we're in homecoming week tonight. All of our K-8 schools were represented at River City High School for the parade of mascots, and it's getting pretty competitive. I don't know who the winner was tonight. I have a sneaky idea, but it's getting competitive.
Superintendent Luna, one of the highlights of the evening is all the mascots had a dance-off.
Oh, shut up.
I have video.
Would you like to demonstrate a model of this? Jan?
Oh, of course. I can get the stage. You kidding?
We'll definitely bring that to
awesome.
at my next
That is awesome.
update, because it's really, it was in the strategic plan. And in the strategic plan aligned with the LCAP, it was about unifying our community. And this was one way that our parents thought about there was a team of parents and community members and staff that came together for this particular goal in the strategic plan about unifying our community. And so it was a great night. I'm sure I was really sad to miss it, but tomorrow I'll be on the field eating nachos, sitting out with the marching band, having a good time at homecoming tomorrow. So good luck to River City. And that's my report tonight.
I just got one quick comment real quick, and this isn't necessarily a comment about your presentation as much as I forgot to mention it. I did attend the Southport and Bridgeway Island back to school night. I forgot that was in the time frame from our last board meeting to this one.
We were talking about it. You talked about it last time.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I forgot to speak about it.
You spoke about it
Did
last
I?
time.
Okay.
You did, sir.
Okay. I was just gonna say. I was going to say,
You're
it was
so
so well put on.
excited.
It was so well put on by both schools. So thank you.
Yes.
All right,
it's
thank
getting
Forget.
late.
I'm a forgetter of things.
That's okay. Future board agenda items, T1, 2018-19 board priorities. T2, superintendent goals and priorities 2018-19. T3, budget study session. T4, facilities study session. T5, student progress on California dashboard for 2018. T6, board handbook. And then we are going to add a review of policy, or what
Yes,
is
I
the-
could have
okay.
just said it there, and that would have been less confusing, so I apologize. So,
Okay.
to review our board policy about our own conference practice and what comes to the board and what does not, as well as to review our district paternity and maternity and adoption, would go with that too, leave.
Okay. And maternity leave. All right. So there's action to adjourn. Anybody motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. 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 We are so adjourned.